Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan to hold talks with India's leaders in New Delhi at the start of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's third term in office. Ukraine summit strives for consensus, but way forward is uncertain after India and much of the global south do not support a joint communique. A tactical pause in fighting to allow aid into Gaza triggers a spat between Israel's army and government. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu denounces the decision. Meanwhile, the army says military operations will continue in Rafah. And President Draupadi Murmu of India leads the nation in greeting people on the festival of Eid-ul-Adha. US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is visiting New Delhi on Monday for talks with the country's leadership at the start of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's third term in office. It will be the first trip to India by a senior US government official after Prime Minister Modi came to power for a third term. Sullivan will participate in a second meeting of the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies. He will meet his Indian counterpart Ajit Doval. This meeting will be followed by a joint statement between the two nations, underscoring the progress made and the importance of the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technologies mechanism for the two countries. Earlier on 6th June, US President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Narendra Modi discussed Sullivan's upcoming visit to New Delhi during a call made by President Biden to congratulate Prime Minister Modi on his electoral win. In other news, a two-day meeting called the Summit on Peace in Ukraine concluded in Switzerland on Sunday. More than 90 countries signed a joint communique that lays out a possible roadmap for a resolution of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. But it lacks unanimity, for one, because it agreed at a summit where Russia was not invited. Amish Mahajan reports.
The Ukraine Peace Summit in Switzerland has successfully concluded with over 90 countries signing the final declaration. Swiss President Viola Amherd presented the key points of the communique, emphasizing the importance of the safe use of nuclear power, the protection of shipping navigation routes, and the return of unlawfully displaced children and detained civilians.
We have managed to agree on a common vision here on the Bürgenstock. We have set out that vision in the Bürgenstock communiqué. Herewith we are sending a clear signal to the people of Ukraine and to all those directly affected by the consequences of the war. A large part of the international community has the desire to bring change.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky praised the support from Western and other leaders at the summit, highlighting that this collective effort underscores the potential to restore the rule of international law.
That we can achieve results as soon as possible. And it is exactly these and other similar practical steps to restore security and peace that will prove to everyone in the world that the UN Charter can be restored to full effectiveness. All the principles and purposes of the UN Charter. Thank you very much. Slava Ukraini.
Meanwhile, Russia has expressed its willingness to engage in talks with Ukraine. However, it stressed the necessity of guarantees to ensure the credibility and seriousness of any forthcoming negotiations.
Putin is not rejecting anything. He's not rejecting the possibility of talks. He says there are legitimate bodies there in accordance with the country's constitution, who is authorized to conduct negotiations, etc. Negotiations, as a rule, are conducted by expert people, but the results of negotiations are recorded by legitimate. Agreements on paper are the fruit of very complex expert negotiations, a balance of interests, and of course, taking into account the realities on the ground. And this will be the case this time as well.
As the summit comes to an end, the international community remains hopeful that these declarations and commitments will pave the way for lasting peace and stability in the region. With Bureau Inputs, Amish Mahajan's report for DD India.
Switzerland's foreign minister has said that talks aimed at paving the way for peace in Ukraine is conceivable before the US presidential election in November.
Yes, I guess it is conceivable that such a conference could be organized before the US elections. It depends on the willingness of the organizing states, of Ukraine and of the big powers.
For her part, European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen said that the summit has brought peace closer to Ukraine, but path to real peace will require patience and determination.
Our support and this peace summit here brings real peace closer. The goal is a just, comprehensive and lasting peace. This would finally bring an end to the oppression and suffering of the Ukrainian people. This would reaffirm Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. And this would restore the primacy of international law and the UN Charter. The path to real peace requires patience and determination.
Let me pull up some graphics on that meeting for you. India participated in the Switzerland-hosted summit on peace in Ukraine on the 15th and 16th of June. An Indian diplomat, Pawan Kapoor, represented India at the summit. Now, India did not associate itself with a joint communique issued towards the end of the two-day talks. At the summit, India called for a peaceful resolution of the conflict through dialogue and diplomacy. India pitched for sincere and practical engagement between both the parties to the conflict, calling it essential for achieving a resolution. And last but not the least, India said it is committed to engaging with all stakeholders and both parties involved, contributing earnestly towards achieving an early and abiding peace. To West Asia now, where Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday denounced military's plans to hold daily pauses in fighting along one of the main roads into Gaza to facilitate aid delivery into the enclave. The reaction from Netanyahu underlined political tensions over the issue of aid for Gaza, where international organizations have warned of a growing humanitarian crisis. Israel's National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir also denounced the idea of a tactical pause. He said that whoever decided it was a fool who should lose their job. The military had announced the daily pauses in the area from the Kerem Shalom crossing to the Salah al-Din road and then northwards. The military clarified that normal operations would continue in Rafah, which is its main focus of its operation in southern Gaza. 8 soldiers were killed on Saturday in this area. As fighting in Gaza continued, conflict across the Israel-Lebanon border is now threatening to spiral into a wider war as near daily exchanges of fire between Israeli forces and the Hezbollah militia have escalated. A dense cloud of smoke was seen rising over the hilly frontier in southern Lebanon on Sunday. Last week, the Hezbollah launched the largest volley of rockets and drones yet in the 8 months it has been exchanging fire with the Israeli military in parallel with the Gaza war. The US and France are working on a negotiated settlement to the hostilities along Lebanon's southern border. Hezbollah said it will not halt fire unless Israel stops its military offensive on Gaza. For its part, an Israeli military official said that Israel will take the necessary measures to protect its civilians until security along the country's border with Lebanon is restored. An advisor to the U.S. president is traveling to Israel on Monday for meetings to avoid a further escalation along the blue line between Israel and Lebanon. Attacks between Israel and the Iran-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon have led to worries of a deeper war across West Asia. Mourners attended an emotional funeral in Israel on Sunday for a military officer killed in Rafah. The funeral was held in the Mount Herzl cemetery, where the soldier's sister delivered a eulogy, calling him the best brother ever. The soldier, who was posthumously promoted to sergeant, was killed along with 7 other soldiers in southern Gaza on Saturday.
The best brother ever. You are very talented and such a good builder. You have such an amazing personality. תמיד אוהב לעזור לאנשים אחרים עם חיוך על הפנים, ועשה זאת בצניעות ובענווה. תודה שהיית הכי טוב בעולם ותמיד תהיה איתי בלב.
To the Indo-Pacific now, where maritime tensions between China and the Philippines seem to be intensifying in the South China Sea. Only this time, China accused the Philippines of an intrusion. China's Coast Guard alleged on Monday that a Filipino ship illegally intruded into waters adjacent to the second Thomas Shoal in the South China Sea. The Filipino transport and replenishment ship allegedly ignored China's repeated warnings. The Chinese Coast Guard said that the vessel deliberately and dangerously approached a Chinese ship in an unprofessional manner, resulting in a collision. An Italian nuclear energy firm is hoping to build 20 mini reactors in the UK. The company, called Nucleo, has signed a partnership to work on a so-called fourth-generation nuclear reactor in Italy. While countries such as France are trying to expand their already extensive nuclear power capacity, Italy is the only G7 member that does not have a single operational nuclear plant. Giles Gibson reports from Rome.
This is the Lakeside Research Centre, where scientists are trying to push Italy back into the nuclear age. Private company Nucleo has partnered up with Enea, the Italian government's research agency, to develop smaller fourth-generation nuclear power plants. Instead of using water, the reactors are cooled with liquid lead, which researchers say is much more efficient.
Fourth-generation reactors have another objective: close the fuel cycle. That's why they changed from a water coolant to a liquid metal coolant, sodium or lead. And in this way you can use all the compressed fuel to make an entire reactor charge. It therefore becomes convenient because it doesn't waste fuel, but it reprocesses it and puts it back into circulation. So the goal of the fourth generation is this, while maintaining the safety standards of the third generation.
Italy started building nuclear power plants in the early 1960s, but after a couple of decades, they became politically radioactive.
In 1987, just a year after the Chernobyl disaster, the Italian government held a referendum on nuclear power. And while citizens weren't actually asked whether they wanted to ban it outright, the results led to the final nuclear power station in Italy closing its doors in 1990.
In 2009, the government at the time started looking into building new plants, but the Fukushima disaster in Japan was just around the corner. Another referendum in 2011, in the wake of Fukushima, put a stop to the government's plans. Today, nuclear scientists say the public needs to be educated about this new generation of plants.
From the physical point of view, in principle, a fourth-generation reactor is not very different from previous reactors, because the type of nuclear reaction that takes place inside of them is exactly the same. The difference is in the technological solutions adopted. So rather than a different way of working, from the operational point of view, we talk about new, advanced, safer technological solutions.
While supporters of nuclear power say it could play a key part in decarbonising major economies, environmental groups say it produces huge amounts of toxic waste. While Italy's energy mix is still heavily reliant on natural gas, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's government has been laying the groundwork in Parliament for nuclear power to potentially be switched back on. But even the researchers themselves admit it could be a decade before the first new plant comes online. Giles Gibson in Rome, reporting for DD India.
And now take a look at what else is making news around the world. Mexico's wrestlers demonstrated their force and commitment to beat climate change through the country's most popular sports, a form of wrestling, at an event held in the country's capital, Mexico City. The event aimed at raising awareness towards climate change. A body cam footage showed Pickles, the piglet, leading police officers on a wild chase and evading capture in Sebastopol on Thursday. Sebastopol is the largest city in Crimea and a major port on the Black Sea. Police said that Pickles had to be chased through multiple city blocks before being taken into custody and being reunited with his mother. Muslims across Iraq and around the globe ushered in the festival of Eid-ul-Adha with special prayers and celebrations. Eid-ul-Adha is also called the Feast of Sacrifice and is one of the two major Islamic festivals observed annually. Eid-ul-Adha holds deep significance as it commemorates Prophet Ibrahim's ultimate test of faith when God commanded him to sacrifice his son Ismail before providing a lamb as a substitute. The festival highlights the importance of faith and divine intervention. Muslims across the United Arab Emirates offered special prayers on Eid al-Adha. In Saudi Arabia, the spiritual high point was the gathering of more than 1.5 million pilgrims from 180 countries at Muzdalifah after descending from Mount Arafat, a key ritual of the annual Hajj pilgrimage that coincides with Eid al-Adha. The festival holds supreme significance as it represents the values of devotion, faith and divine intervention. Still to come on DD India Live. India's Home Minister reviews security for annual pilgrimage to the Hindu shrine of Amarnath in Jammu and Kashmir. India's Railways successfully conducts an electric engine trial on the world's highest steel arch rail bridge over the Chenab River in Jammu and Kashmir. And India's women's cricket team beat South Africa by 78 runs in the first of 3 ODI matches.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. India's Home Minister Amit Shah chaired a meeting to review security and logistics arrangements for a pilgrim's journey to the Hindu shrine of Amarnath that's located in Jammu and Kashmir. The minister instructed security agencies to be vigilant and ensure sufficient deployment of security personnel for the pilgrimage. He called for establishing a perfect inter-agency coordination for effective security arrangements, including a well-established standard operating response mechanism. The minister said that Indian government is committed to ensuring a convenient and hassle-free experience for pilgrims and adopt eco-friendly measures in the management of the pilgrimage. The pilgrimage to the cave shrine of Amarnath would commence on the 29th of June. Jammu and Kashmir has made elaborate arrangements for a smooth conduct of the pilgrimage, including seamless registration, convoy movement, camping facilities, medical facilities, upgrading the tracks, providing power and water supply, as well as mobile phone connectivity. The first ever direct flight between India and Cambodia was launched on Sunday. The flight was inaugurated by Cambodia's Deputy Prime Minister Net Savion and India's ambassador to Cambodia, Devyani Khobragade. In a social media post, the Indian Embassy in Cambodia said that this move marks the start of the first tourism year and will boost tourism and people-to-people connections. The embassy hailed it as a historic moment, citing India's Act East policy. The flight between the two capitals will be operated 4 times a week by Cambodia's national flag carrier, Cambodia Angkor Air. Crossing the world's highest steel arch rail bridge over the Chenab River, India's Railway Ministry has successfully conducted an electric engine trial from Sangaldan to Riyasi. The 46-kilometer stretch would be inspected over 2 days as the ministry gets closer to its ambitious project. The first train between Sangaldan and Riyasi is probably going to operate on the 30th of June after a successful trial of an electric engine on the route. Eid-ul-Adha, the festival of sacrifice, is being celebrated across India on Monday with immense joy and enthusiasm. Muslims gathered in mosques to offer prayers. It commemorates the acts of a father, Prophet Abraham, obeying the diktat of God, who tests his devotion by asking him to sacrifice that which is dearest to him. This Eid also marks the culmination of the rites of Hajj, one of the pillars of Islam, which involves a visit to Mecca and reenacting the events carried out by Prophet Abraham. It marks the end of the Islamic calendar and the beginning of a new year. India's President Draupadi Murmu has greeted fellow citizens on the eve of Eid-ul-Adha. In a message, the President extended greetings and best wishes to all fellow citizens and Indians abroad, especially its Muslim brothers and sisters. The President said, "On this occasion, let us take a pledge to work together for the development and welfare of our nation." All right, now take a look at what else is making news in India. India's Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan on Sunday assured action against National Testing Agency officials if they are found guilty of irregularities in the conduct of the 2024 National Eligibility cum Entrance Test undergraduate. Taking the matter on high priority, the minister said no culprit will be spared. He emphasized the improvement of the NTA, which conducts the NEET examination. A massive fire broke out in a medicine factory in the Secunderabad area of India's Uttar Pradesh state in the early hours of Monday local time. The police evacuated nearby areas. The fire has since been brought under control. No injuries were reported. Renowned singer and India's cultural ambassador Maithili Thakur performed at the Bhakti Vedanta Manor at Bradford in the United Kingdom on Sunday. Britain's Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden attended the event, which saw an enthralling devotional performance by the young singer. As parts of northern and western India reel under a scorching heat, tourists from across the country flock to the snowy lands of Himachal Pradesh's Baralacha Pass. The high mountain pass located along the Leh-Manali highway is witnessing a surge in visitors. To sports news now, Indian women's cricket team secured a thumping 78-run win over South Africa in its first ODI game in Bengaluru on Sunday. Smriti Mandhana's outstanding century and a clinical bowling performance led by Asha Shobhana played a crucial role as they went 1-0 up against South Africa in the first of the 3 ODIs. Mandhana registered a brilliant century to end her ODI 100 drought, recording a brilliant 6th century and the first in last 2 years and eventually setting a target of 297 runs. Mandhana also surpassed the 7,000 run milestone in international cricket. Jude Bellingham struck in the first half to give England a 1-0 win over Serbia in its Euro 2024 opener on Sunday. England is the runner-up in the 2020 edition and is seeking to finally win a trophy and befitting its vast array of attacking talent. After scoring with a header against Serbia, giving the Three Lions a 1-0 lead, Jude Bellingham has now scored England's opening goal of the tournament at the 2022 World Cup and Euro 2024. England is still a side in transition without stalwarts such as Harry Maguire, who is injured, and midfielder Jordan Henderson, who was left out of the Euros, and with several inexperienced players in the squad. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India Live. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan that QR code on the screen to download it. And let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. All of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.